Well, here it is, ladies and gentlemen. Doom 2016, New Doom, Doom 4, whatever you want to call it, it has finally arrived. In its original form, Doom was a trailblazer, a trendsetter, turned so many heads that for years to come, anything that followed was labeled as a Doom clone. Since then, though, we've had a lot of notable entries into the old first-person shooter genre. The landscape has changed, styles of gameplay have risen and fallen out of favour, and in a strange turn of events, this version of Doom now finds itself having to prove itself against everything else. To expect it to define a genre now like it did back in 1993 would be a little bit unfair, but still, there is a lot of weight behind that name, a name everyone associates with no-nonsense gameplay and one ridiculously outnumbered space marine. So with that in mind, what's changed?
Rip and tear until it is done.
If we're gonna start anywhere, we might as well start with the story. Story's never really been all that much of a priority for the Doom games. Sure, Doom 3 tried to deepen the plot a little, but ultimately it still comes down to bad people, open portal to hell, everything goes predictably wrong, and it falls to our ever-dependable Doom guy to go mop up the mess and deliver a swift kick to the collective gonads of demon kind. For this version of Doom, it's very much a variation on a theme. Instead of unleashing hell, it turns out that ethical garbage fire UAC has been exploiting it for a while now, cheerfully harvesting Argent energy direct from the shores of hell itself. It has fueled progress, it's fueled success, and unfortunately there doesn't really seem to be that many people left around to enjoy it thanks to an employee going full-on Satanist. So basically everyone that isn't a shambling possessed freak by now has probably been torn to pieces by rampaging demons. Lovely. It's about as Doom as a plot can get, really. At least that would be the case if they didn't throw a little bit of a curveball at us with regards to the origins of Doom Guy himself. In previous games, he's just been a grunt, with no other option than to fight to make it out alive. Here, though, Doom Guy wakes up chained to a stone coffin and turns out to already be the ultimate scourge of demon kind, so feared that his legend is carved in stone on the very plains of hell itself. So, right away, that throws up a lot of questions for me. Firstly, how long has he been in that coffin? Who made the armor that was buried with him? Where exactly does he come from? Has he ever actually seen a gun before today? And why do they also speak English in hell? And ultimately, this is a big one. This is a really big one. If the armies of hell managed to get Doom Guy in a position vulnerable enough to strip him naked and bury him in a stone tomb, why didn't they just rip his friggin' heart out? Why didn't they just friggin' kill him? I know, it's a Doom game. They're going above and beyond by having a plot in the first place, but you know what, I like to nitpick. But ultimately, as long as it leads to lots and lots of demon slaying, I'm happy. And on that front, good grief, does this version of Doom include a metric fuck-ton of demon slaying. If you want blood and guts, if you want limbs forcibly removed from their owners or heads dramatically severed, then step right up, my friend, because Doom 2016 is going to make you about as happy as a pig in a bumper-sized mud pit. In fact, I'd probably go as far as saying that Doom 2016 probably dispenses with the glory kills a little too freely. It actually got to the point where I was bored of seeing certain kill animations, so much so that I'd actually go out of my way to trigger a glory kill from an awkward angle just to get something a little bit different. The system itself is set up in a kind of ingenious way though, because even if you do get desensitized to it, and trust me, you will, it's something that you can abuse the crap out of during the course of the game, it never really becomes less than beneficial to pull off. It basically turns every enemy into a free health pack dispenser, and when you're dealing with difficulties like ultra-violence and above, you are really gonna need them. A lot of the combat itself here takes place in quite open, multi-tiered environments, which is a bit of a surprise for me coming from the more claustrophobic and twisting levels of classic Doom. Sure, there's still a fair amount of demon-infested hallways and corridors to fight through, but these intricate arena-style environments are where the game really puts you through your paces. To start off with, you'll usually be up against small fry-like imps, which you can easily blast into pieces with 1 or 2 shots from a combat shotty. But as you progress, Doom steadily ups the ante. A Hell Knight here, a Revenant there, and before you know it, you're using every weapon at your disposal to carve yourself a path through the middle of all of them. All in all, it took me roughly 12 hours to complete Doom's single-player campaign on ultra-violence difficulty. I died an embarrassing number of times, but I wouldn't say that any of those came from Doom being unfair. It's a game that wants you to play smart, pay attention to your enemies, learn how they move, how they attack, and what's the best way to take them down, because each enemy here adds a new complication to the battlefield every time they turn up. It's a style of gameplay that's admirably old school. It doesn't lead you by the hand, it puts you in a room filled with all of these things that wants you dead and just says, deal with it. In this case, dealing with it involves lots of movement, lots of spatial awareness, and knowing what tool is right for the job. It requires settling yourself into a sort of rhythm, the pace dictated by the combination of enemies currently in play. Ultimately, though, it comes down to shoot the angry demon thing with a gun. Depending on how big and angry the demon thing is, you may need something that makes a bigger boom. And if you're out of ammo, you can always rely on the chainsaw. That thing can carve through almost anything in the game if you've got enough fuel in the tank. And it also turns enemies into the ammo equivalent of a golden shower, which is nice. Oh, and if it's a pinky, shoot it in the ass. Trust me, miles quicker. I may be simplifying the experience ever so slightly here, but it's a tremendous amount of fun to learn the most effective ways of dealing with each particular enemy, and at such a fast pace too. It really keeps you on your toes. Each time you make it through an arena intact, it just feels really, really damn satisfying, mainly because Doom is a game that actually makes you work for your victories. In terms of weaponry, almost every gun in this version of Doom can be upgraded. On top of that, a fair few of them, I think 6 to be exact, can be given 2 different weapons mods, and each of those mods can be independently upgraded depending on which one you feel like using the most. It's an interesting addition that can grant you some really nice extra edge in combat, but I found that when it comes to certain weapons, one mod is usually a much better choice over the other. For example, with the heavy assault rifle, you can choose between a zoom scope or a micro swarm missile launcher. If you don't know which one of those is infinitely cooler than the other, I can only assume that you're dead inside and you have my pity. Same pattern goes for the chain gun. You can have a pre-spin mod that gets the barrel up to speed quicker, or you can enable turret mode that lets you do this. If you chose the second option, well done. Have a cookie. If by some accident you upgrade the wrong weapon mod though, it's not a complete loss, because upgrade points here are actually pretty easy to come by during the course of the campaign. You can get points for turning demons into mincemeat, you can get points for discovering secret areas, and occasionally in these secret areas you'll come across tiny collectible Doom Guy toys. Seriously, I'm going to be very serious with you here. I want all of them. I want them all. I have a burning need to have every variant standing proudly on a shelf behind me, and yes, I am apparently a grown man. Ultimately though, the weapons mods are a nice way to make the weaponry more interesting, because, to be honest, for someone like me, everything here is pretty much a Doom staple. I've seen them all before, and it's nice to have this little bit of extra spice on top. There are a few newcomers here, the significant ones being the heavy assault rifle, and what quickly became my personal favourite, the Gauss cannon. I'm sorry, heavy assault rifle, a micro missile swarm is very nice and everything, but this is the Gauss cannon in siege mode. I rest my case. I may also need a change of pants. If there is one real test you can apply to Doom to judge its worthiness in weaponry though, you only need look to the BFG 9000. That name right there carries a lot of weight. Not just because it stands for big fucking gun, but because if that gun is anything, it is supposed to be the last and loudest word in devastating demonic death-dealing technology. To judge it, all you need to do is pull the trigger and witness the result. Yep. Yeah, that works. Good job. Believe it or not, there's also a bunch more upgrading you can do outside of weaponry. You can upgrade armor attributes with chips you find on the bodies of elite UAC soldiers, which are haphazardly strewn around levels, and you can also boost your health, armor, and ammo pools by tracking down Argent energy cells. On top of that, you've got runes, and those are pretty much the perks of Doom, and those can grant you things like speed boosts after pulling off glory kills, and making enemies drop additional ammo when you kill them, but the catch for those is that you have to go and track down rune challenges during the course of a level. It's a good incentive to slow down a little out of combat actually, and makes you poke around levels a little bit more, because levels here are actually pretty well constructed with lots of stuff that you could miss if you're intent on just blazing straight through. For a game bearing the Doom name, all of this upgrading is a little bit of an odd fit, roughly 90% more tinkering than I ever expected to see in this kind of game, but in the grand scheme of things, it all feeds back into the core gameplay. Armor upgrades especially, for the simple fact that they make you more effective in combat. They increase reload speed, resistance to self-damage, makes the auto map update more effectively. You could probably scratch that one, to be honest, but it's a system that serves to give you some sense of progression to go along with that gradual enemy escalation during the course of the campaign. Visually, Doom looks pretty damn fantastic for a game featuring gore-spattered industrial hallways, sand-blasted Martian hellscapes, and, well, actual hellscapes. The environments themselves clearly benefit from not being buried under some gritty brown shit filter. I mean, who wants gritty realism these days anyway? Have they seen reality lately? It's boring. Doom is much nicer. None of the enemy designs caused me to fly into a foaming rage, which was nice. I still think the little dangly arms on the cacodemons look stupid, and the imps look like they should be competing in the Tour de France. But crucially, everything here is recognizable, which is very, very important when you're involved in a fast-paced demon-slaying rampage. I'm also a fan of the Summoner Demon, purely because it's not an Archvile. And did I mention how much I hate Archviles? Fuck Archviles. I'm so glad there aren't any Archviles in this game. So yeah, thumbs up for the Summoners. The teleporting douchebags that can summon more enemies into a fight, but at least they're not flame pillar spamming dicks. Sorry about that, got a bit off track there, but performance-wise, Doom runs at an incredibly smooth and stable frame rate, which is super important in a game where combat is as chaotic and reliant on player skill as this. I've played a few major releases so far this year, and they've all chugged in one form or another. I don't have a bad build, but they all struggle and wheeze to get close to 60 FPS or just stay stable. This, though, at some points I was getting frame rates of over 100 frames per second. That's buttery smooth. So smooth that it leads me to one of two possibilities. Either the engine behind Doom is actually powered by human sacrifice, or everyone else in the industry right now needs to seriously work on their optimization game, because Doom just blew you the fuck out. You know what, I have to give credit where it's due. Even without the founding members being there anymore, id Software has thoroughly knocked this one out of the park. They've managed to take a game with a lot of weight behind it and turn something out that is just a tremendous amount of fun to play. It's not a groundbreaker, it's not going to change the face of the FPS genre as we know it, but it's certainly going to be remembered as a game that got a lot of things right. I mean, they even managed to do a boss battle right. This isn't a spoiler, by the way. There was a cyber demon in one of the trailers, but I was genuinely impressed by that cyber demon boss battle. I was expecting a shoot it till it dies style throwback, but instead, I got a boss battle that actually tested my skills and reflexes, and for me, that's awesome. I didn't expect that at all. Up until now, I'd considered good boss battles in FPS games all but dead, but here they are, alive and kicking. The rest of them are pretty damn good too. The last one in particular put a really big grin on my face, but that's it in a nutshell, really. It's good. It's pretty damn good. Still don't give a damn about multiplayer, still don't really care all that much about Snap Map, and to be honest, that's a feature that's going to take a while for a lot of people to get their heads around before we see some genuinely interesting stuff. But when it comes to that single player, I can safely say that this has been a genuinely satisfying game to play. So much so that I might even go back and see if I can go complete it on Nightmare difficulty. So there you go, that's what I think of Doom. A tremendously enjoyable game that's refreshingly old school in terms of challenge, and ultimately a game that I think is worthy of being called Doom. Hopefully you've enjoyed this video. Feel free to agree or disagree with me in the comments below. This has been Mr. Icarus, currently celebrating reaching over 10,000 subscribers. Thank you all so very, very much. I'll have an update hopefully very soon where I can really properly celebrate with you guys. But until then, thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.